President Cyril Ramaphosa has accused the Democratic Alliance of jeopardising the foundation of setting up a government of national unity. In a leaked letter, Ramaphosa says the DA has made negotiating difficult. We are now joined by political analyst Dr Ongama Mtimka for more on this. Dr Mtimka, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. What do you read into the Dear John letter?
Good morning to you, Aldrin, and your viewers. What I'm reading from there is that the stakes are high, the emotions are high, and it's getting frustrating. But this is the nature of negotiations. I think the political parties are managing a number of things here, Aldrin. One, the substance of what they are talking about, that is they getting to have a cabinet. However, there's also an internal gaze from the political parties themselves, because for the ANC, those internally within it are looking at this process with a view to judging the elites, especially the president, as to how much are they going to concede to the demands of the DA. The DA, on the other hand, is managing also its own internal dynamics, wanting to show that, I think this is the elites within the DA, wanting to show that they are not, selling out, as it were. So that makes the stage to be very tense, because in the end, it's as much about who gets what as the optics of what it looks like politically. Does it look like one party has strong-armed the other? I mean, if you remember, Aldrin, what happened after the Helen Zille letter, we were seeing people posting, that Gogo that's in charge photo on social media. And that shows you how sensitive this process is, both in terms of the internal dynamics in parties, but also in terms of the optics in the public in general.
Yeah. Do you believe, looking at the statement of intent and also the interpretations coming from the two political parties, especially the ANC and the DA, that the main bone of contention is Section 16, whereas the ANC on the other end, as the President writes in his letter, the clause further provides that, and this is now Section 17, that the President shall, in constituting the executive, take into account the electoral outcomes. However, though, the President still bears the prerogative of appointing those members of a cabinet.
Yeah, so that's the issue with political arrangements, right? When it comes to the conduct of power, we always look at to what extent do agreements reached by politicians, talk to the Constitution, either subverting it or enabling it. So whatever agreements, when I looked at that agreement, I was like, there's no way that you can do things in ways that significantly compromise constitutional powers. But also the president and the ANC cannot hide behind the constitutionality clauses in order for them to present a deal that the most senior of their coalition partners are not happy with. So how I am seeing these two players negotiating this issue is the president, obviously, recently. Initially, I mean, I think that he's accepted the principle that, the DA has got to concede and accept and be consulted to its satisfaction with, what cabinet is constituted. Already, that is going beyond what the Constitution needs. We always knew that when the president selects a cabinet, there is some consultation process, but it was not codified, somewhere in terms of what process should be followed internally within the ANC. For that reason, you have had always complaints from the tripartite alliance that there wasn't sufficient consultation. So there was always some consultation, but it was not done in such a way that it would present proof in the public domain that the vested executive authority in the president is actually being undermined.
Yeah, what I don't get from the letter is what the Democratic Alliance have argued in terms of their interpretation and the proposal around the calculation of the formula that would be used, and how bringing in other members of the GNU within the executive would mean that between the ANC as well as the Democratic Alliance, they will first get the allocations of the number of executive titles or positions, and then only after that do they then bring in the other GNU members, and from that position on, one party would lose one seat or give the other seat to another political party that will be part of the GNU. That is not reflected at all even in the president's statement or letter to John.
So, yeah, so two things that are a problem here in terms of how the DA is looking at this matter. One, it's the advancing of what has irritated the DA's coalition partners in different municipalities of the senior coalition partner, argument. Secondly, it's failure to appreciate that the ANC is a coalition in itself, that assumptions about proportionality are a lot more nuanced, especially given the fact that what are the constitutive elements of the ANC's power? Are the ANC, the SACP, COSATU, and SANCO, and in cabinet allocations, those have had real effect, even though they weren't a real coalition. That notwithstanding, though, the idea from the DA that there should be some proportionality is a legitimate political demand. Mm-hmm. However, the preference that it seeks is a question of degrees of that preference. And I think that in this instance, for me, without actually delving into or encroaching into the powers of the president, there's been sufficient balancing. But it's not scandalous when the DA is not convinced that that is the case.
Yep.
It must take the process of mutual convincing in order to reach that level where allocations can be made. And also, Aldrin, I think that the DA is still aggrieved by the broadening of the GNU, notwithstanding its position about how preeminent the first three partners ought to be and how necessary it was for them to be consulted. So part of what we're seeing is the playing out of a two can play that game type of thing.
Yeah, and as Helen Zelles pointed out, 2 weeks ago, around about this time, when the new members of parliament were about to be sworn in, there wasn't a deal in place, and it was a very rush situation in trying to get a deal in place. And the ramifications of that is what we are currently dealing with. And the argument from the DA is consistently that, but remember that on June 14th, you signed this particular statement. What happens if the Democratic Alliance walks away? Is that a possibility at all? Because the president in his letter says, I'm sure that you are aware that the DA is not the only party we are negotiating with on setting up the government of national unity. And earlier on, I was referencing what the president said after his inauguration when addressing people on the lawns of the union buildings, that if there is a member of the GNU that is misbehaving, they will be chucked out.
Sure. So you see, again, the president of the ANC is doing a two can play that game, a move there, Aldrin. One of the fundamental rules of negotiations taken from the book How to Sweet Talk a Shark is that you must never humiliate your negotiating partner. And I think that there's been some mutual humiliation here on the part of the ANC and the DA, with the DA gaining a significant share of that in terms of being the culprits as far as the ANC process is concerned, because the leaks mostly have come mainly from, or at least have framed the DA as being in charge, which is why they felt humiliated. Now, it's not President Cyril Ramaphosa's strong character trait, at least the evidence we've seen, or based on the evidence that we've seen, to kind of take a swipe at an opponent, unless pushed in a corner. And I think that that's what happened in this instance. So to your question, What I hope for is that cool heads prevail in the Democratic Alliance as far as this process is concerned. It's the first time they're getting into government, getting 6 portfolios, some roles in the National Assembly, and deputy ministerial roles. I think for me, this is that part of the negotiation process where they should either come up with a way of escape, and that way of escape could be, we are coming back, fine, we're letting go of DTI, but give us a one other portfolio as opposed to 2. The ANC would also have to come to the party by either showing or playing open cards to say, and this is the president now, and that open cards could be a simple phone call that says, look, this is how I've contemplated my cabinet so far, and there's just no way I can give you another portfolio. Or yes, I'm happy that you are now asking for 1 instead of 2, and you're asking for another portfolio and not DTI. Let's sign a deal and move forward. That's what I hope happens. If it does walk away, it creates an untenable instability in the House, because the seats then would be split too close to the middle. And as they said, they're playing the same card that Julius Malema played against Ethel Trollip when the DA failed to vote with them on the expropriation bill, and said, if we don't agree at a national level, we're gonna, go for KZN.
Yeah.
Now, since they've played that card, for me, we're getting into that again, tit for tat, zero-sum politics, which is undesirable for where we are as a country.
Yeah. Finally, Ongama, it's clear, it's evident from the government that is currently being led by the head of the executive, which is the president, the only executive currently in place, is that the vision is to have a government of national unity that was expressed in the president's weekly letter as well. Now, considering the insights that we are getting from this leaked letter to John Steenhuisen and some of the words that are being used, for instance, in reference to Helen Zille, her correspondence being offensive, condescending and inconsistent with the Constitution, accusing the DA of jeopardising the foundation of the government of national unity. Do you think that the president has a responsibility to address the nation about how far negotiations are currently, just to try and allay fears? Because at the end of the day, you are also here speaking about the livelihoods of individuals.
That's an interesting thought, Aldrin. It's a high-risk one in the sense that if he has to preempt some outcome, right, in terms of the response of the DA, he can play cards openly. I don't see how he can do that without taking a swipe at the opposition, and I doubt that he needs that at the moment. So maybe he preempts some outcome that maybe they're going to come to the party, and tomorrow they don't. Then it becomes another challenge. My sense would be that they need to invest their energies in doing all the necessary, pulling out all the stops, whether it means locking each other in a room and box as much as they want until they come out with an answer. I think that would be the best way forward.
Well, let's see how that is going to play out. Thank you so much for your time. Dr. Ongama Mtimka is a political analyst, and we still wait on the president to tell us when there will be an announcement of his executive. But in that letter sent to John Steenhuisen, the indication is that this is the final offer that we are making to the Democratic Alliance.